Nigerians and Russia coping with the sanctions. So what do they think about the conflict in Ukraine? Well, providing us a window into these is Chairman, Nigerians Diaspora Organization, Russia, Uwem Sampson. Uwem, thank you for joining me this evening.
Thank you.
How is the conflict in Ukraine being reported in Russia?
I think we are seeing the whole picture of the unfortunate, very, very unfortunate event because Russia and Ukraine are just like brothers and sisters. They speak almost the same. They speak the same language in most cases. Most of the Ukrainians, they speak Russian, and many Russians have their relatives, friends, and colleagues in Ukraine. So this is a very, very unfortunate event because nobody even assumed or imagined that this could have happened. But now that we are in it, we only hope for a diplomatic solution to it.
So what are you hearing on the news? How is Russia reporting the conflict in Ukraine?
Actually, the Russian Defense Ministry on a daily basis, give a report on the successes or the advancement of the Russian military in Ukraine. And from what we are able to observe, we understand that we need to be very, very careful with how we interpret the information that we see, because one and the same picture of videos are interpreted differently depending on where you look at it. So we just try to stay out of the conflict itself and focus on how we can help to get the Nigerians that are trapped in the Ukraine out, and how we can deal with the impact that it is having on Nigerians that are living in Russia.
Well, let's talk more about Nigerians living in Russia. As you have rightly mentioned, you're in Moscow now. So when we talk about these sanctions that have been imposed by countries like the United States, with allies in the European Union and NATO countries inclusive, are they impactful on Nigerians who are living in Russia? Have you been affected by them?
Indirectly, yes. Because Nigerians who have businesses have seen a slowdown in their businesses. Some have reported a slowdown of up to 40% in their businesses. But it's definitely going to have an impact because money is not able to move as smoothly and freely as it was moving before. Like, for example, MasterCard and Visa have stopped their international operation. So if you have a Visa or MasterCard, the card only work inside Russia. The moment you get out of the shores of Russia, the card is no longer working. Or if you have a card that a Master or Visa card that was issued outside Russia, when you get into Russia, you cannot use this card. So that really affects the movement of money for even individuals. On the business level, especially for those who are doing international business, they have seen like a huge slowdown in the movement of money. Actually, SWIFT has been closed, but not every bank is included in the list of the SWIFT that has been closed. Some Russian banks are still able to operate because some kind of businesses still needs to go on, and it has been selective. So only the Russian big banks are suffering from the SWIFT. Most banks are still functioning, and the international banks in Russia that are operating, they are still functioning well.
So how are you able to bypass, the restrictions in some of these financial institutions?
I think though the sanctions that have been imposed has been imposed for businesses to somehow get their way through, because I think that because if SWIFT was if the SWIFT was general on all the banks, then the financial transactions would have been closed. But there are selected banks that SWIFT has been, they cannot use SWIFT. So some other banks can use it. So businesses can just move from one bank to the other and they still can function. The stock market has suffered a lot, and that's why it has been closed. And the currency has lost about 35% of its value at the beginning, but it's now recovering. The loss is now at about 27% compared to the value that it was about a month ago. But the problem with businesses are that when you don't know the value of the currency, then it's difficult to make transactions, especially transactions that take long time to complete.
What about normal everyday, transactions that you have to make? For example, I know that a lot of businesses, international businesses, have packed up and left, leaving their assets behind. How are you guys in Moscow? How are you able to, make your purchases and so on from what you're used to?
Yeah, I especially have been moving around to see if there's something really different from what has been before. But I tell you that when you go to the shops or when you move around the city, you don't see any difference from what was a month ago and what is now. All the shops have the same goods that were in there before, but the only difference is that some Russians try to buy more and keep a stock just in case. But the shops are continuously replenishing the goods in the store. So if you do not watch the TV and you just move around the city, you will not see most Russian cities, except the ones at the border with Ukraine, where the flights has been, flight zone has been, no flight zone has been placed. When you move around many Russian cities, which I have been doing for the past weeks, you do not see any difference at all, comparatively.
Finally, as chairman of Nigerians in Diaspora organization in Russia, what are you telling members about the current crisis going on between Russia and Ukraine?
We do not want to get into the discussing the crisis itself because we do not have enough information that can make us to understand what exactly the crisis is all about. What we try to look at is the impact on the Nigerians and the opportunities that still exist and how we can continue to hold on to our bilateral relations with Russia. And that's how the life can continue because mostly the Nigerians do not feel it except for the financial restrictions. Because, for example, students who are private students who have to pay school fees, they are having difficulties receiving the money to Russia to pay their fees and may be expelled. That was the reason why we were holding a meeting yesterday to see how we can resolve that issue together with the Nigerian embassy here in Moscow. And just this kind of technical issues are what we're trying to deal with to see how we can adapt the solution, where we can find a solution to adapt ourselves to the current situation, because we understand that this situation is not going to go away tomorrow. And so we have to do something so that the students do not lose their future because of the conflicts that they know nothing about.
What are you doing to help them?
The embassy is doing a lot to help them. What we do as NIDO is to raise the awareness for us to understand. And we are talking to the schools where they are studying, and the Russians have promised not to expel anyone this year. And apart from that, as I understood, the Russian Ministry of Education has promised to give scholarship to Nigerian students who may be willing to come from the Ukraine to Russia to continue their education also. So the Nigerian embassy is working really, really hard in this direction, and we're just helping to make things happen in this direction. And we're trying to raise the awareness so that the students will know that some opportunities are available, because sometimes if you don't get this information out, then people just don't know about some of the opportunities that are available.
Uwem Sampson, thank you for enlightening us this evening.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
This video you're about to watch happened